Hey guys, and welcome to episode 7 of season 2 of Creators Campfire. Tonight I am joined by podcaster, videographer, and photographer Jared Spink. Jared, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. This is great.
This is very cool. And I say tonight, but it's lunchtime for you. It's 12
Lunchtime,
p.m.
and I'm still like maybe on my third or fourth cup of coffee. I
Oh,
don't know.
wowzers. Okay, awesome. So Jared, do you want to just start off by giving a little introduction to yourself and the many things that you do?
Yeah, so as you brought out, my name's Jared Spink. I run a production company here in San Diego called Hive Media. I also run a podcast called The Hive Podcast, where I interview other like-minded individuals, entrepreneurs, creators. That's been a lot of fun. And yeah, that's kind of what I do, is, a lot of video work, a lot of photography work, and the podcast. The occasional YouTube video. I need to get back on the consistency on that, but yeah.
Awesome.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a lot of things. And I want to touch on all of them. So kind of take me back. So obviously the YouTube channel came first and then the podcast happened, but way before that, I guess your kind of background is in photography and videography. Was there one more than the other? How did that look kind of growing up or getting into it?
I mean, the photography business, I started my own photography business on the side, like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. 3 years ago, we'll go with. Doing it full time since November of last year. Before that, tons of other jobs, a lot of jobs in marketing. But the photography started, as a hobby way back when I was a little kid. Man, trying to remember what grade it was. It was elementary school, so maybe like third grade. They had a photography contest, and it started with those little like cheap Kodak disposable cameras.
Yes.
And that's where it kind of all started. And through my childhood, put down the camera, picked up the camera a number of times, and it kind of stuck a little later in life, and I really enjoyed it. And the videography definitely came later. Mainly as a business necessity. A lot of people just have that misconception of if you can do photos, you can do video, like they're interchangeable. They're not. So yeah, it just came out of more of a business necessity, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. So it's more like, hang on, I'm a photographer, but I'm going to have to end up doing some videography. So I might as well get into it. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Right. And the skills have come, and the better video equipment has come. Like right now we're shooting on a Blackmagic 6K, and I'm a gearhead at heart. So, I got to love all the latest technology.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So I know next to nothing about cameras. Let's be honest. Let's not pretend. But I have heard a lot about the Blackmagic things, and I know that they are very, very cool and very expensive. So that must be fun.
Yeah. They're pretty affordable for a cinema camera. They really are. Okay. But yeah, they produce a good image at a really affordable price.
Okay. I'm going to take your word for it, because it's probably not affordable for me, but I see exactly where you're coming from. Okay, cool. So, sorry, going back a bit, you said you have your own digital media agency, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about that. Well, how does that work? What's that like?
Yeah. So, I mean, it started off with me, again, focusing on photography, and the video got added just out of necessity, because everybody expects you to do video too. So I started that full time in November of last year. Previously to that, I worked in the beer industry for 7 years. Yeah, for a distributor that worked with Anheuser-Busch. Anyway, the company got bought out, and everybody got laid off. So I was already kind of doing the photography on the side and making a decent part-time income on the side. So theoretically, if I was making part-time income doing it part-time, if I went ahead and just said, all right, I'm going to do it full-time, I should make full-time income, right? The math made sense.
Yeah.
So starting a business in November is not recommended, because it's the holidays here in the States, with Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year's. So very slow that time of year, especially because I focus on real estate photography. Not a lot of homes being bought and sold that time of year.
Yeah.
But I had some contacts. I stayed busy enough. It gave me time to get the website up and figure out all the back end business stuff. And then the pandemic hit. So yeah, that was the perfect time. But actually here in California, the real estate market took off during the pandemic. It just absolutely stayed busy. And I incorporated, some of those Matterport virtual walkthroughs where you can tour the home 3D and stuff.
Yes.
And that was like a necessity for people selling homes during the pandemic. It still is. So actually the business kind of took off because of the pandemic, but yeah, that's kind of what I focus on is mainly real estate, only because that's what's kept me busy. I love doing events, photography and stuff like that. There just isn't any events right now.
Yes. No, yeah, not great timing. But I suppose actually that's really interesting that it took off. But going into it with that mindset, do you now look at it as if it was a good thing that happened and it gave you the push to go and do it full time, or do you think you would have done it anyway?
Well, the pandemic is not good, but getting laid off, I think was a good thing. It gave me the push to like, okay, this is something I already wanted to do and I had the goal to do it. And it gave me the opportunity to just jump in. I don't know how long it would have took for me to jump in and give up a lot of the benefits that come for working with somebody with, the health insurance, and I had a company car and all that stuff. To give that up to do this would have been tough. So being forced to, it's worked out, and it helped definitely give me the push.
Yeah, I guess it's that silver lining thing, right? But also there are people out there that are kind of in that do I, don't I kind of mentality. They're like, okay, the full-time thing isn't really for me, but because it comes with the benefits and it's more apparently secure, then is it better to just carry on and be comfortable? Or do I dive right in and actually do something I probably would love to do day in, day out?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk to anybody, that it's a risk, right? Going off on your own and doing what you love and changing careers is always a risk, because you've been doing whatever for so long and you have that safety nets or that sense of security that comes with it. But I think everybody you talk to that's made that change and done that leap, taken that leap, not one person has regretted it.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's the thought that keeps me going, I suppose, is I don't want to look back and regret something and be like, oh, what if, or I should have done this. It seems like the most horrible feeling ever to go, why didn't you just go and do that?
Right. And you got to come with the mindset of, you got to do it responsibly, right? Save some money, look at your expenses. I'm not saying just go out and, take that leap and just do it, but do it in a responsible way.
Yeah. No, completely. Okay. I know you say you don't like to call yourself a YouTuber, but you have a channel and you have a decent following. So how did that all come about? Where did it fit into this? And why did you start it?
Yeah, I think the YouTube video started before. Did it start before the business started? It kind of started before the business started. Just because I wanted to try it. It was that time where, YouTube was really taking off, and, you're watching other YouTubers like, hey, I kind of like this. I think I could do that. I want to do that. It's not as easy as it looks at all.
Agreed.
But yeah, it was just something that I wanted to do, and I'm not consistent with it at all. I have the goal of being consistent, which goals and actually following through completely different, right? But
yes,
I have a whiteboard over here with tons of video ideas. I just need to, what holds me back is it's the setup and breakdown in this little office, because I'm a little bit of a neat freak, and so I don't like having all the gear just set up all the time. I set it up and I break it down because I want a clean office because it motivates me. But
yeah.
yeah.
No, I totally understand. I get the neat freak thing. I kind of, I'm not playing that at the moment, which is really bad. And I don't like admitting it, but I'm glad this only frames this bit, because actually outside of it, it's not a great look, which is a little painful for me, but we are working on it. You know, the daily YouTube desk setups, I just like that would be amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, I totally understand. It's that friction, right? It's another step, and therefore I have to go and do something, and it just doesn't get done.
Yeah, I think if I had a setup where it would just be set up all the time and I can just, you know, hit the on button, the record button on the camera, I'd probably be a lot more consistent. But it's that's why I'm more consistent with the podcast, because this is my podcast desk and it's got all my podcast equipment on it. And so when it's time to record an episode, I just have to power everything on.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to stick with YouTube for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to dive into the podcast because I have lots of questions on that. So obviously it was something you wanted to do. It was like a creative outlet. Did you have any plans for it? Did you say, you know, I do want to actually grow this, or was it literally just actually I just want to try it, or I just want to make videos and I don't really care much about what happens with it? What was that kind of mindset?
I think it started with, I just want to try it and see what it's like. And, you know, after a couple, then it's like, yeah, you know what, this would be fun to continue to do and grow. And that's the goal now, is I want to grow it. The only way you're going to grow it though, is by being consistent. So wanting to grow it and actually growing it, completely different. But yeah, I mean, I love it. There are so many things. It is a lot, like I said, a lot harder than it looks when you want good quality, especially if you're going to be doing camera reviews. People expect a certain quality out of it, right? So I've learned along the way, because going into it, I was a photographer, not really a videographer. And so there's still a lot I'm learning.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. There is an added expectation because you are doing tech videos. Right. Which just adds extra pressure, and it's like, oh, and then the whole perfectionism thing kicks in, right? And it's like, no, this really has to be perfect.
Perfectionism, it can hold you back, definitely.
Oh yes,
I've scrapped a lot of videos because I'm like, I don't like it. I don't like it.
Oh no, yeah, okay, I totally agree with you. I've got Gary V quotes in my head going, don't do it. Because it's that whole thing, right? The amount of people that say, I wasn't going to post this, but I did, and actually this did really well, because you don't know how the audience is going to like relate to something you might not think is good. But yes, perfectionism. It's horrible.
It is. And even, you know, especially when you're first starting out, you know, to people that want to start a channel. I mean, I said this on Coffee with Creators, right? A great podcast. I said, it's going to suck. Like your videos are going to be horrible. They're not going to be good when you first start. So the sooner you can accept that and get over that fact that there's going to be trolls, you'll get some negative comments, whatever, like, all right, whatever. Once you can move past that and start just learning from the experience and the process, the better off you're going to be in the long run. Yeah.
No, completely agree. So you've hit the milestones in my eyes. So my milestone is like, you know, the first 100 custom URL, and then 500, and then it's like 1,000. So you hit those milestones. How did they feel? Was that even a thing for you? And obviously we've talked about how difficult it is to grow it to that, but kind of what are the things that you learned along the way?
I mean, it's exciting, right? I mean, everybody says don't care about the numbers, but the numbers, they are a motivating factor, and it feels good when your channel has some success. So I remember hitting 100. I don't remember where I was. Definitely remember hitting 500. Yeah, I definitely remember where I was when I hit 500, and it's just exciting. You know, it's if you don't care, when they say don't care about the numbers, people usually have a lot of numbers already, and they're just trying to help the small people. But don't read too much into them, but they are motivating. It's how you judge the success of your channel, right?
Yes.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I suppose it's like not getting caught up in it, but yes, obviously when you hit those, it's going to feel good and take a moment to stand back and like, pat yourself on the back for hitting that, because there's a lot of people that don't hit that.
Well, I think when you look at it in a positive way and use it as a motivating factor, it's good. But I think the trap that a lot of people fall into is they read too much into the numbers and they get depressed that it's not growing as fast as they want. And that's what holds them back. And so that's why I think a lot of people say, don't care about the numbers. Don't be checking, on your phone every 2 seconds at YouTube Studio to see your subscriber count, because YouTube is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It takes a lot of time. I was just on recording a podcast before this with someone that has 183,000 subscribers on YouTube, that's a lot, right?
That's a lot.
But she's been doing it for 10 years, and she's at 183. It's still a big number, but I mean, 10 years it's a long time.
It's a long time. Yes. But you're right. Yeah. It's a marathon. And therefore, when you get into it, there's a lot of people, I think, that turn up and expect overnight success or very quick success and don't realize the amount of work that goes into it and how consistency is it's such a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, the instant success is definitely the exception. It's not the norm. Most people, for a lot of people, it takes a good year to even hit 1,000. And then after that, you still got to grind away. And like you said, the consistency is the most important thing to that, in my opinion, to the algorithm. It'll show you a lot of love if you're consistent with your YouTube videos. Yeah,
no, agreed. Did you ever have like one video that kind of just took off and was like, oh wow, this is nuts? Or was it just like kind of consistent and you keep going and it naturally builds?
No, it's a roller coaster for sure. You have videos that do really well. Like I had one when back when I was using Sony cameras and I got the Sony a6400. I made a video about the top accessories for the a6400, and the quality of the videos, at the time I was like, oh, this is great. And looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. But that video's done really well and it still gets a lot of views. And I have a couple of videos that do have a lot of views where I haven't looked in a while, but at least 20,000 views. But then you also have some that just tank and, stoked if you get 100.
Yes.
So it's definitely a roller coaster. Like you said, you never know what video. That's why you should always be creating, because you never know which one is going to be the one that really takes off and helps you have success on the channel.
Yeah. Just one last question on this. How do you kind of deal with that roller coaster ride? And was it different because you kind of were a bit inconsistent and therefore you had other areas of focus? Did that make a difference, or do you think it was still just has an impact on you?
I mean, it definitely, if someone says it doesn't have an impact, it does, right? Because it is a motivating factor. If a video does well, you want to create a video. If a video tanks, you're like, oh man, you get a little tired. But you got to maybe analyze that video, figure out why it didn't do well. Was it the video? Is it the way you tagged the video? You titled it? There's a lot of different factors. And so when something doesn't work out, don't keep doing that. Try to figure out why that wasn't working out and correct that. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah, I think you're doing it very well. Okay, cool. So then we move into the podcast. So this came after YouTube, right? So what was kind of the thought process behind that then? And whilst I suppose you were still creating YouTube videos, why take on another venture?
Well, I've always wanted to start a podcast. It goes all the way back to 2011, the first time I wanted to start a podcast, and I never did until this year.
Yeah.
I always wanted to have a podcast that kind of told the stories of entrepreneurs or individuals. And now that, I work in the creative field and doing photography and videography, I wanted it to focus around that. And I've absolutely loved doing that. And it's just it's a creative outlet. and I get to meet a lot of cool people, and it's a creative outlet that is a lot quicker and a lot easier than making YouTube videos. It just is.
Yeah.
And it's allowed me to have that outlet and be more consistent with it. And like I said, meet a lot of amazing creators and business people and be able to hear their stories.
Yeah, no, that makes a whole lot of sense. So going into the podcast venture then, so obviously it's something you always wanted to do. Did you have a plan, or was it, I assume you had much more of a plan than I did, but what did that kind of look like, and how did you go about starting it?
Yeah, so I definitely had a plan, and the plan's always evolving and how I want it to grow. But yeah, I always try to plan things out and give a lot of thought to it. So started off with, a notepad and, a pen, and trying to come up with the concept. So with podcasting, there's usually, there's the solo podcast, there's the co-host podcast, and then there's the interview format podcast. I already knew I wanted to do interview format, which in itself is difficult, as you know, because interview is tough to grow because they're not necessarily tuning in for you, they're tuning in for the guest. And so to be able to implement some of your personality into the show is super important. So doing research on different formats and how to be successful, coming up with names and brand consistency. I worked in marketing for a long time, and I know I wanted the brand to carry over from, my media business, my production business. So I wanted the same colors. I wanted the name to be fairly similar, the logo to be fairly similar. So working on that. And then on the flip side, researching where you want to host it, what equipment you want to use. Do I have the equipment? Do I want to invest in different equipment to really up the quality? And then, you got to start making a list of guests and put a start date down so you can start doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Out of interest, how long did it take before you decided that you were going to give it a go and actually recording your first episode?
Yeah. So I mean, it was fairly quickly. I think it was like in February. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this maybe mid-February. And then I think it was by mid-March, I had my first episode up.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Geek time. Talk to me about your workflow. How does your podcast episode look from kind of getting your guest to hitting the upload button?
Yeah, so it's definitely changed a lot. It's evolved, just like anything does. From experience, you learn what works, what doesn't, what you like, what you don't like. So my workflow starts with, it has to start with figuring out who you're going to have on the show. So researching who I want, reaching out to them by any means possible, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, email, and then working on dates and scheduling it out. So I like to have an episode every Monday. Ideally, I like to be a couple episodes ahead. Super important for consistency. That's what I've learned that I haven't done on YouTube is, have some stuff kind of backlogged, but I try to do that with the podcast, definitely. And scheduling, I don't have a set schedule record date or day of the week I record. I kind of just try to work with whoever's coming on the show and their schedule. And then from there, once I, get them to agree, send them a calendar invite, set up the Zoom call. I used to really script out my episodes with questions and send questions over to the guests. I don't do any of that now. Nothing.
Yeah.
It's made it a little bit more free flowing and a little bit more casual than, but the script was okay. It served a purpose for me, for consistency, for me to get a feel of how I want the podcast to go and what kind of questions I want to ask. So I don't do that anymore though. So yeah, that's kind of the process of before I hit the record button, finding the guest, researching the guest, knowing who they are and some of their experience and the questions I want to ask them, at least in my head now. Yeah. Then we record. It's usually just over Zoom. And I definitely try to record with people now that have the ability to record their own audio on their end. It just makes it just a lot better than, the Zoom call audio or phone call audio on their end.
Yep.
Have them send it over to me. And I started off with free software using GarageBand, which works perfect. So there's a lot of free tools out there for people that want to start a podcast. And then now I use Logic Pro, and you learn as you go on how you want to edit, and it's gotten better. I used to not even record multi-track. I used to just, everything's baked into one track and you upload. And so it's evolved, definitely. It's gotten more time consuming, but the quality, hopefully everybody can notice the quality going up.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So
does that answer the question?
It really does, but it sparked several others.
Okay. And my one of my favorite guys just logged in. Hey, Tom, if you're watching, if you're still on.
Tom is awesome. Huge shout out to Tom. Actually, he's pointing out that your mic windscreen looks awesome, and I also want to touch on gear. So, I know you posted to Twitter just earlier before we jumped on about your setup, and damn, that looked good. So walk me through the gear you used, and possibly how that's evolved over time, because I'm assuming you didn't have it all to begin with, but maybe you did. Sorry.
Tom, that's some humility, Tom. If you're watching the comments right now, we just said Tom's awesome, and he apparently agrees because he says he is awesome. Good job, dude. The gear. Like I said, I'm a gearhead, and I like to try to do things as best as possible. Like, I want the best quality when I'm jumping into something versus starting off with lower quality. So I did start off with the Rodecaster Pro and a pod mic to begin with. I knew that's what I wanted, and it would give me the quality that I wanted going into the podcast. Yeah. There's other tools out there. There's other affordable tools. I was just in a position where I could afford it, and I wanted that jump in quality immediately. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of just the heart of the podcast, is just the pod mic and the Rodecaster Pro. It's an amazing tool. Watch some of Tom's videos on it. I mean, that's what sold me. He's probably sold a dozen of these things at least for Rode. Rode should be, sending him anything he wants at this point, because I think he's sold a ton, but he definitely sold me on it. And it really is an amazing tool. A lot of people that want to start a podcast, I highly recommend it. Just pull the trigger and you won't regret it. Yeah, so that's the heart of the podcast. And of course, the windscreen, I can't remember what this thing is called, but it definitely adds a lot to the pod mic. It does have a built-in windscreen. It doesn't work that well. This gives it a little bit more better sound. And I mean, that's kind of it. I haven't really done live streams. It's a goal that I have. I have the equipment for it. So right now we're using the Blackmagic 6K feeding into the A10 Mini, and then using a separate monitor so I can see what I look like before we hit record and stuff. But there's not a ton of gear. It's just very specific select gear.
I'm just going to take this time to point out that I'm using a webcam built into my 8-year-old computer and a 60-pound mic. Okay, the gear, right? I love gear, but it does not matter. For anybody watching or listening to this, it does not matter. And I've been doing photography and stuff for a long time, and you build this stuff up. So don't let gear hold you back. You can make really good audio podcasts with just your phone and a decent set of headphones. Yeah, you can create with just about anything now with your phone. It's an amazing tool. Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. And well, clearly, like, I'm doing it with nothing, so you absolutely can. But
and that's the thing, you're not going to get the other gear unless you start creating with what you have.
Yeah. I actually, again, sorry to make this all about Tom. Well, actually, I'm not sorry, because he's probably the reason we're here. So actually, just guys, it was Tom that said you should reach out to Jared. So Tom is the reason he is here and we're doing this. So thank you for that. And he's put in that he is the most humble So can't argue with that. But actually, before I carry on with that story, I just want to shout out Mac as well, who has been coming to all of these and has helped me a lot. And I just want to say
awesome.
thank you. Yeah, he's awesome, and he's helped me with the lighting. So we've already upgraded this setup a little bit. So
yeah, I mean, you can create a lot of good stuff on a webcam with proper lighting. I think we've all seen those YouTube videos, right? That's what cameras need. They need light.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So just give them what they want.
100%. But yeah, my point was, I actually think in a roundabout way, I probably started a podcast because I'd seen Tom do a Rodecaster Pro review at some point, or talking about it, and gone, I really need a reason to use one of those. And yeah, I absolutely do want one. And I'd like to think I will get one day. But now I'm also looking at the A10 Mini, but I still don't really know what it does. But all this gear looks so cool that I just want it. Anyway, I have massively gone off on a tangent and just told everyone my tech wish list. So anyway, let's get back to podcasting. So going back to your guests and how you kind of research them. So obviously you said you want something for creatives and entrepreneurs and to kind of talk about those things. How do you pick your guests? How do you decide who would be cool to come and have on and talk to?
Well, I think, the podcast is made for people, hopefully like me, that enjoy photography, videography, business related stuff. And so if I like following the people that I'm reaching out to, hopefully, my guests, or not my guests, my listeners do too. So I kind of start off with just reaching out to the people that I enjoy watching or listening to. And yeah, I mean, that's how I pick it, and I reach out to them, and hopefully they respond and say yes. If they don't, oh well.
Yes. And I think that's another thing that stops people potentially is reaching out and being worried that either someone's going to say no or something, or like it's not possible. But I think we are proof that it can happen, and you just need to kind of.
Yeah. I mean, I've reached out to a lot of people that I was like, I don't know why they would get back to me and want to, jump on a call and talk to me. Like I'm nobody, but you just got to take that. I mean, I think what's helped me push my comfort level is definitely, the YouTube channel and starting a YouTube channel. It's if you met me outside of podcasting and YouTube, like I'm a fairly reserved, quiet person. You get me going, then I'll start talking. But like, I'm not usually the one to start off a conversation. I hate big crowds. I love music, but I hate going to concerts, right? I hate the crowds. I'm a very kind of I prefer to stay at home and watch TV and just relax. But I think a lot of people are like that, and you just got to push your comfort level. The YouTube channel definitely helped me do that, putting yourself out there, dealing with the stupid negative comments that come in. And once you mentally can deal with, I guess, rejection or people not liking what you're putting out there, that's not for everybody. All right, whatever. But once you can wrap your mind around that, everything else just gets a lot easier. So reaching out to people, not a problem.
Yeah.
Especially over email. I mean, like, what are they going to do?
Yes, right. You've literally got absolutely nothing to lose. So why wouldn't you try it? It's nice that there's a fellow introvert here, because that's the other thing that you kind of point on. So I think a lot of people also think, and this maybe goes back potentially a bit more to YouTube, but that you almost have to be an extrovert, or you have to be this huge character, and you have to be larger than life to be able to be a YouTuber. And it's like, well,
and the majority of it is the complete opposite. I think what I've learned is you talk to a lot of YouTubers and even podcasters, the majority of them are introverts. It's weird. It's a whole different personality when it comes to the YouTube and podcasting and social media space. A lot of those people aren't like that in real life. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I guess it's the same as like Instagram is like the highlight reel, right? It's YouTube you're not going to watch someone if they're going to sit there and just be monotone. They need to have a bit of personality on the screen. Doesn't mean they're like that 24/7, but that is a good point. Because I think so Sam was on not last week, the week before, and he was saying the same thing, is that before he got into YouTube, he was talking about how he had this expectation that it was those kind of characters, but actually it's not, and he's someone else that would fall into the introvert category. And it's nice, I suppose, to know that people are like that, especially if you are kind of coming from that. There is a space for everybody. It's yours to make your own. So don't kind of hold yourself back or anything. Just get out there and create, and that's the whole point. Awesome. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked by comments.
Yeah, me too.
That's cool. Guys, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in, and I will attempt to multitask and ask them. But luckily for me, Jared is also on it. So
I have a question for Mac, if he's still listening. So he says, we're inspiring. Thank you. But he can't do a podcast in his field. He wants to interview musician colleagues. So I think that's perfect for podcasting. I'd be curious if you could drop some more information on why you think that wouldn't work in your field. I think you could podcast about anything. So I think it works out with anything.
Yeah,
so
I think
let us know, Mac.
Yeah, he'll still be here, I hope. I think you're right. I think that is the thing about podcasting. It's almost, I don't know if it's like easier to put stuff out there on a podcast because you're not kind of bombarded with analytics so much with them. So with YouTube, it's like this whole algorithm, and it's like pushing it, and it's like it's so easy to get caught up in the numbers. Whereas with the podcast, it's like, okay, I'm just going to do this and put it out there. And I feel like I'm not looking at any numbers when I'm putting a podcast up. It's just like,
I mean, it's still kind of the wild, wild west out there for podcasting. I mean, there's still a lot. People always ask like the same question about YouTube. Like, YouTube is too crowded? Should you start? Yes. Podcasting is too crowded. Should you start? Well, I mean, compared to YouTube, there's hardly any podcasts out there compared to YouTube. I mean, there's still a lot, but it's nothing compared to YouTube. So definitely start if that's your goal. I totally lost. What were we talking about? Oh, should you start a podcast? Yeah, start a podcast.
Yeah. And heck, start a YouTube channel. It's not too late. Just go for it. Okay, look, Hassan, me and Jared, we've just both told you we are introverts. Okay, sorry. For those that can't see the comments, which I think is everybody, Hassan has just asked if being an introvert doesn't matter, then how do you reach out to have guests? And Jared, actually, you go first, and then I'll
I mean, we kind of talked about it, but I mean, I just, either reach out to them via email or Instagram or Twitter. I mean, Tom, I emailed Tom just out of the blue. Hey man, I like your stuff. Like, I have this podcast. This is what I do. I think your story would be cool. You should come on. And he was like, yeah, that sounds great. And it's to this day, still one of the best conversations and one of my favorite episodes that I've had. You just, I think when you're an introvert, the only thing that holds you back is yourself. No one's going to do it for you. I wish I had some like magic wisdom to give you, but I don't. You got to pull the trigger, and you got to just, motivate yourself to take that leap and that jump. And yeah, you just got to start. You just got to do it.
Yeah. I actually, before I carry on, I've also listened to that episode with you and Tom about 5 times. So I also very much liked it. But yeah, don't let being an introvert hold you back. And if anything, actually contacting a guest via email is so much easier than jumping on a call with them straight away. At least in my experience, it's so much easier for me to have a message conversation than I'm now obviously getting used to speaking on camera. And I think I've said this like 4 times now, but I wouldn't even webcam at work. Like, it just wasn't a thing. But once you start doing it and stepping out just a little bit out of your comfort zone, it happens. So just like, whether you do it with friends to begin with or family, just to start. I literally, like, my first few episodes were just with almost not completely random people, but they were just people close to me. And then you kind of build that confidence, and over time, right, it's like anything, you develop that skill. So do not let it hold you back. If anything, like Jared said, it's actually probably works in your favor. So go for it.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I started too, is just with people I felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
And, I had another thought. Oh yeah, like creativity is a muscle, right? You got to work it out, and if you don't work it out, yeah, like you're gonna lose. You know, just like when you don't work out, you lose muscle mass. But if you want to keep that mass, like you got to continue to work out. Same thing with creativity, whether it's podcasting and just being comfortable with yourself and what you do to create. You just gotta work at it, and the more you work at it, the better it's gonna get.
Yeah, awesome. So Hassan, I'm fully expecting a podcast from you very soon. I think was the moral of that story. Okay, cool. So I've got what I'm now going to call the selfish question segment.
Okay.
Yeah. I have questions I'd like to ask, and yeah, I'm turning it into a segment and owning it because turns out I ask everybody anyway. So let's not.
See, that's something I want to do. I gotta start like incorporating segments. So I might steal this from you.
Absolutely, take it. This is officially started. Okay, selfish question segment. Going back to your A6400,
which I no longer have.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's cool. That was good. Okay, so I am in the market for a camera for live streaming and hopefully also filming YouTube videos. The A6400 is something that has come up a lot. Do you have any thoughts, having owned it and used it, and from what I've seen, loved it, on what camera I should go for, roughly in that region of monetary value?
Yeah, I mean, the A6400 is a great camera. If you can afford a little bit more, I'd go with the A6600, just because I think the 6600 very similar, but it has IBIS built in, so that's nice. And you can record indefinitely once you plug it into power. So yeah, I mean, I think that's great. Or I've seen a lot of good stuff about the Fuji X-T3 and X-T4. So those are also really, really good.
Okay, I think I've done the Apple Samsung thing with Canon and Sony, and therefore have disregarded anything else. But that's a good shout. I will definitely have a quick look. Okay, so my follow-up question to that is, if I went down the A64, or if magically my budget stretched to the A6600, what lens would you recommend?
Okay, so you have two options. I would either go with the Sigma 16 millimeter, which is just like an all-around great lens for YouTubing, kind of vlogging or live streaming, because it gives you that wide angle. Or if you want a little bit more versatility, I really recommend, I think it was the 18-105 actual Sony lens. It's an f4, so it's not as fast as the Sigma, but you get a lot more reach and versatility out of it just with the zoom range.
Okay, awesome. Mac will be pleased to hear that they are the two he recommended to me. So I don't have the Sony camera yet, but I did buy the lens because it was on offer, and I was like, I can return it.
Which lens?
I bought the Sigma 16 mil.
It is a great lens. And if you're not making like a ton of, YouTube videos where you're, doing slow motion B-roll and stuff like that, like the 16 is all you need. It is a fantastic lens. You'll be really, really happy with it.
I'm very glad you said that. So my final selfish question to carry on the topic is, I have an old Canon 750D, which is, I think, the T6i, with a 50mm lens. Now, I like it very much to take those portrait photos when we have like family get-togethers, but I can also sell it and get sort of £300 or something, which would cover like the lens, for example. My only worry is that the A6400 with that lens is obviously primarily focused for video. What would you recommend, keeping something like that or buying a different lens? Or actually, do you think that setup is actually good enough to take pictures like that?
I think it's pretty good for taking pictures like that. So you got to keep in mind that it's a crop sensor camera. So at 16, was it like you're getting like it's basically like a 24 mil.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's still considered wide. It is wide, and that's why it's great for video. But it all it all just depends on your budget and what you want to do. I can't really tell you what to do with that. I don't know. I'm a big fan of hoarding gear, and I have quite a bit. But I also sell a lot, right? Too. If I'm not using it, I'd rather have the cash. But I also got to look at it from a business aspect where I try to have redundancy, right? So I got multiple cameras and multiple drones just because that's the way I make my living. If one goes down, I need to be able to continue to do it. So if you're not really using it and it's only on those rare occasions, maybe sell it. I mean, if you have a phone, phones are great for taking family pictures now, you know?
Yes, I think, okay, that's a very good point. My phone is probably my backup, and it'll still come with a kit lens, so I'll still have something. Okay, that's cool. I think that's answered mine. Thank you. Oh, I love this selfish question segment. Okay, cool.
So I get it. I thought you were going to ask me selfish questions, but it's selfish questions for you.
Yeah. I am literally taking my chance to ask the pros and be selfish. I hope that was okay.
But keep in mind, I'm not the person to ask about Canon. I've never shot a Canon in my life. I don't think I've ever held one in my life. I'm a diehard Nikon shooter, and I will remain one because, well, I have tons of Nikon lenses.
Okay, fair enough. I will not come to you if it all goes horribly wrong. It is not on you.
Go to Tom.
Oh, absolutely. Go to Tom. He's telling me, okay, no, right, Tom, we need to catch up after this. Okay, awesome. So in terms of if you could do either the YouTube or the podcasting, or actually perhaps both, over again, knowing the things you know now, how would you do it differently, and how would you see that journey have gone? What are your biggest learnings?
If I had to do the podcast differently, I would have started back when I wanted to start in 2011. Right.
Great answer.
That is probably the only thing I would have changed, is start earlier. There's been mistakes, there's been learning curves, but that can all be addressed. If I would have just started earlier, I'd be a lot further along. Right. So, with that, and I think anybody watching or listening to this, just if you have a goal, you got to start, right? Because you're never going to get to where you're at if you don't start, and you're going to get there a lot quicker if you start. You're going to learn a lot quicker. So just start. And then, kind of the same thing with the YouTube is I would have started earlier, and I would have, be more consistent.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, some quick fiery questions. Who are your kind of YouTube kind of inspirations? Like, if you look up to some people, or maybe those people that have like gone, I really want to be like that person. Do you have some that stand out?
Should we say someone other than Tom?
Someone other than Tom, because I think we're both massively inspired by Tom.
Well, I mean, right? He's a teacher. That's his job, is to be inspirational, right?
He's nailed it.
So, okay. Repeat the question one more time.
Sorry, it was very badly worded. Who are some of your biggest inspirations? Is a easier question.
I mean, I think when I first started out, like a lot of people, I mean, Casey Neistat, Peter McKinnon, have been big inspirations. But I would say, I mean, well, Casey's not really consistent anymore, but I don't follow Peter as much as I used to. But I really do kind of like what, Maddie's putting out there. Maddie Hapoya is putting out there has been really, really awesome. I love watching Dave Mays, now that his original channel, and then now he's on Indie Mogul. He's doing great stuff. I love his stuff. And then Potato Jet. I love Potato Jet.
I'm actually very new to Potato Jet, but I'm so glad I found him.
So he's got his main channel, right? And then he's got a vlog channel, which is a lot of fun to watch.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's my week gone. Okay. Awesome. What was I gonna say? Okay. So these are two different questions, but they might have the same answer. Who would you most like to collab with, or who would you most like to have as a guest on your podcast?
Guest. I mean, I would really love two people I really want to have on the podcast. I want to have Maddie on the podcast eventually. He's just with the newborn and stuff. Like I reached out to his manager, but with the newborn, he's a little busy right now. And then, Pat Flynn. I'm not sure if you know who Pat Flynn is. Pat Flynn is an amazing podcaster. He's doing his income stream live stream every day now. But he grew up where I grew up. We kind of have similar stories, how he started his business when he got laid off. So I would love to talk to him, working on that. And collaboration wise, are we talking like podcast collaboration? Or are we talking YouTube collaboration?
I think more YouTube.
More YouTube. Shoot, I don't know. I mean, there's just so many great people out there. I don't even know where to go with that one. Some people I've had on the podcast before is the crew from Coffee with Creators, Michael Soledad and Chelsea Horn. They're really, really great podcasters and both have YouTube channels. It'd be fun to do something with them because we get along. We have similar personalities and we chat back and forth sometimes on Instagram. So it'd be fun to do something with them.
Awesome. And then finally, what's the one piece of gear or tech that you kind of can't live without?
That I can't, my phone. My wife tells me to put it down all the time. It's basically glued to my hand. Because I mean, I never was a big like phone camera guy, but I have the iPhone 12 now. It's totally changed my mind on that. And I think like if you got rid of everything I have, you could still do it with this.
Yeah, it's insane. Which one did you go for? The 12 Pro?
Yeah, just the regular 12 Pro.
Just yeah, okay.
I can't go with like the big Mac. Like I had a big phone before, and it's just I don't know.
Big.
Big.
Yeah, I was going the other way. I was like, can I get away with a mini? And it seems like I might be able to, but
I mean, the only reason I had the 10S Max before, something like that. And the only reason I really like the big one is because for flying my drone, it was nice having the bigger screen. Now I'm just using like an old iPad mini for the big screen that it's strictly just for flying the drone. And so I could go with something a little bit smaller.
Awesome. Okay, this has been brilliant. So firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
I don't know if we added any value to anyone that's going to listen to me ramble, but
I think there was a lot of value. Yeah, no, I think there was definitely a lot of value. 100%. There was some really good stuff in there. Where can people find you and your podcasts?
Oh yeah, people ask me that when I'm on their shows, and I always forget what my stuff is. You can find me on Instagram at Jared Spink, or you can follow the podcast, which is the Hive _podcast on Instagram. And then from there, you can click the links in the bio. You can go to my website. You can go to Twitter or wherever you want to go from there.
Amazing. And then finally, do you have any last kind of message, something you might miss, something you want to say to people? Get a message out there.
Just start. If you want to create, just start. I said this on another podcast, and it was from a book that I read called, I have it right here, propping up my laptop. Creative Calling, great book. I highly recommend listening to it or reading it if you have that creative ambition. It's very, very motivating, but the only way you're going to fail as a creative, there's two ways, either by not starting or by giving up. So if you don't start, you're going to fail. If you give up, you're going to fail. So just start and keep going.
That is a brilliant way to end this. Guys, thank you so much to everybody who's joined and asked questions and participated. And I'll see you guys all next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.